It's only took us about 5 years now for this Reverie story to finally start bearing fruits and for Oda to actually explain properly what's going on here. But he just dropped a absolute scorcher of a chapter, and it is genuinely worth it. Oda genuinely just blessed us here. So without further ado, let's just get into it. But before you all do that, I'd like to just ask you to like the video and maybe even subscribe, as it does help me out. But go and grab your snacks, go and grab your juice box. Let's get people comfy and let's get into the chapter, because this chapter opens up where we left off from the last one, with Cobra now having seen Imu, and he is sat there thinking to himself how no one should be able to sit within the empty throne here, and then goes on to say how the world shouldn't even move to one single person's individual will, which really isn't far from One Piece and how it's been this entire time. I mean, Roger basically started the entire Pirate Age and the storyline of One Piece here by saying a few words on the chopping block as his finals. So Cobra really doesn't have his thinking cap on here right now, but that's what come across my mind here at least anyway. But Imu starts to speak, and for some reason is speaking within the third person and also refers to himself as Mu rather than Imu, which I don't have a singular absolute clue as to why he's doing this. However, I do have a crackpot theory. It did make me think on whether Imu isn't one person but is actually rather multiple, maybe like a split personality type beat. It did remind me of Split, where they refer to the beast as... You get what I'm saying here. Anyway, Imu goes on to say how there's two things that he wants to discuss with Cobra, and then one thing that Mu wants to ask. Cobra is sat in his chair and asks Imu just who the hell he is, and honestly, he's finally asking the fucking right questions, because we really need some answers here, bro. It's been too fucking damn long here. But he also goes on to say how he recognizes the name Imu, and then mentions how within the first 20 kings there was, but then it gets cut off by Imu himself. So Cobra could have been just about to say how Imu was among the first 20 kings, which would imply that Imu is also well over 800 years old at least. And again, if that is the case, it then leads into the question of what I've just said, of whether Imu is even fucking human or not. But Imu carries on talking about how the D refers to those who he once opposed in days long gone, which again leads back into the arguments of D are the natural enemies of the gods here, which again, if Imu is some sort of god, it would explain how he is 800 years old if he was back from then when the 20 kings were about. If it is the same Imu and it's not just a name being passed down, maybe the Imu name is the enemy of D. I don't really know where I'm going, bro. I just want answers, man. I'm just as confused as you are, brother. But Imu goes on to talk about how all of the D name who have been causing all of the incidents around the world have no idea of the meaning of their own names, which is obviously referring to literally anyone with D in their name causing any sort of chaos or mischief to or around the world government in the last 20 years here. But Imu then talks about how 800 years ago, Lily's great blunder caused all of these so-called scholars to start then studying the Void Century, but then also mentions because of Lily's mistake, the phone glyphs would have never have been scattered around the world, which if I remember correctly, I always thought the phone glyphs couldn't be moved. I mean, unless I'm forgetting something here, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below, but I always thought the phone glyphs have always been in the same spot forever, but it turns out that is apparently not the case now. But Imu then starts to wonder if whether the release of these phone glyphs was actually a mistake or whether it was part of a bigger plan, and also then mentions how it was also the worst possible outcome for us, again referring to himself within the third person. I'm not sure if he's talking about himself or if it's the world government, but I genuinely am on the train of thought that Imu might be having some sort of split personalities here, and you could have Imu as one personality, then Mu as another one. I don't know, but it would explain why he's known as Imu but refers to himself as Mu right now. It's kind of weird. But it is at this point that the five elders draw their guns on Cobra, and honestly, seeing these old boys showing some force in the series actually genuinely made me so happy, because these dudes have had my interest now for a genuine long time. This has been a thing that I've been getting excited for and getting ready for, because I'm genuinely convinced that these five old heads are actually stronger than the admirals, which could be a genuine hot take for a lot of motherfuckers in the comments, and I'm okay with that. That's fine. I'm known for the hot takes around here. But seeing these dudes getting so high up in the world government government, they've got to be packing some serious firepower. And not only this, but old dudes in anime and manga are just absolute menaces to deal with. Like, come on now, name me an old dude from any anime or manga that isn't an absolute fucking serious bitch to deal with. And we got 5 of these dudes. We're coming into the end saga of One Piece here. Now, Oda's got to up the stakes and show us something greater than the Admirals, something that can contend with Gear 5. And in my opinion, he wouldn't give Luffy Gear 5 and have him fight an opponent that he would just simply wash with Gear 5. So I think these 5 elders are going to show us something genuinely scary. But Imu tells Cobra to tell him the full name of Lily, which turns out to be Nefertari D. Lily. Which, as Cobra speaks, we see Sabo lurking in the background, listening to the whole conversation here. And Sabo watches as Cobra is stabbed by some black shadow arrow. And I'm not certain, but I feel like this could have come from Imu himself. But again, I am genuinely not certain. But Sabo jumps in to attack Imu, and Imu turns into some sort of massive monster and eats the flames that Sabo had just launched on him. And again, Oda is being ridiculously deliberate in keeping Imu's form a secret here. But this is where we get another big reveal that all of the 5 elders, they've all now transformed. So they all have some sort of zone devil fruit, I would assume. They look animalistic here. And I just want to say, I called it. I did just say I called it. I've been saying for so long that there is no way these dudes haven't got no power at all. And again, just like Imu, Oda is being super ridiculously deliberate and not even actually revealing the forms of any of the elders, which I think is wild. Like, come on now, please. Surely at this point, after 5 years of this storyline, surely into the final saga here, we would get something, even just one of these guys getting revealed. But no, all just silhouettes. Like, Oda just loves to just string us along, so I guess we just gotta take that one, and hopefully it's not another 5 fucking years before we get another glimpse at these dudes ever again. But Sabo ends up being chased out of the room. We found out that this is how the photo of Sabo ends up in the papers here, because we see the little picture snail just taking a photo of it, which I always think is dead funny how the snails always blink to take the photos. It's kind of funny. Anyway, we see King Cobra trying to tell Sabo more information on the D family and how he needs to tell them how they are all sharing the same name basically here. And he tries to explain more, but as he's trying to explain it, he gets cut off by the roaring of the 5 elders here. I mean, it could even be Imu who's roaring here, but to be honest, this chapter has given us some massive reveals, and it genuinely doesn't stop there. It goes a little bit more. Turns out Wapol is actually watching the whole events unfold throughout this meeting here through a hole in the wall. I'm gonna be honest and say that as Imu, that's a dumbass play right there. How are you gonna be the most secretive dude on the planet and not have people check for little gaps in holes and walls and stuff like that, so you can't be fucking spied on? But that's a thing. But Wapol, being the smart survivor, instinctive man this is, says, fuck this, I'm out of here, and starts chomping through the walls to get out of the castle as fast as humanly possible, which is where we cut to Vivi, who's actually being held by the CP0 agents, Khalifa and Jabra, and the rest of their squad there. But Jabra lets us know how Fujitori's actions actually ended up helping the Revolutionary Army, and him and Greenball ended up having a bit of a dispute there. And I can't lie, Fujitori's moral compass is another one that has me super interested, because I'm very suspicious on whether this dude is a legitimate admiral or if he's gonna make like Aokiji and just bounce away from the admirals and the world governments after a little bit of a dispute. And maybe even where Aokiji went to the Blackbeard pirates, maybe Fujitora could go to the Revolutionary Army. I feel like he would genuinely be a good fit in there. His moral compass is he seems to want to help people more than just bring motherfuckers to justice. That's the impression that I get off him. So I could see him leaving the government and maybe siding with the Revolutionary Army to maybe take them down after seeing the ugly side of them. But as Vivi is thinking about how she is going to get out of this situation, we see Wapol munching through the walls and taking Vivi with him, saying how he is running as far away from here as absolutely possible, with Vivi saying that she's coming too. And overall, Oda just dropped a heater. He's in his bag for this chapter. I mean, it feels like he's never really out of the bag, I can't lie here, but it feels genuinely nice to finally see the goings on of the reverie here. And my personal favorite is the reveal of the silhouettes for the Gorosei's like devil fruits. I truly hope Oda doesn't leave it for another 5 years before we get more Gorosei power reveals. But it is also good to mention how we are not on a break next week, and I would love to see us possibly switch back over to Egghead Island now and maybe even see J. Goss see her arrive on the island and maybe get an actual reveal for his powers at the very least, because he's there with Kizaru, and I wouldn't mind seeing maybe a little clash between him and Luffy. I think that would be pretty sick, but again, we will have to wait for the next chapter to see what happens. Overall, Oda is just in his bag. But that is everything from me. If you haven't already, please be sure to like the video, and if you definitely haven't, please be sure to subscribe, because that always does help me out. But as always, I will catch you guys all in the next one. Much love, big kisses, peace.